So today we're going to talk about how you can benefit from this. We're going to show you some examples of what these interactive maps look like for your facility or campus. And then we're going to dive into how those were created. We really want to get into the meat and potatoes of it, is how do you make these interactive maps and how can they benefit your organization. So we can, starting off here, we can use them for space management and interactive maps for turn-by-turn navigation, life safety information for emergency responders. You can also connect to real-time monitoring feeds and sensors. So if you've heard of IoT, that's the Internet of Things. Of course, that's the concept is everything's becoming more connected. You can engage with your facility this way, having an interior mapping interface to show, say for example, if there's a alarm going off, you can light it up on your indoor map to be able to interact with that. You can maintain a single source of as-built. This is one thing that I really think folks can benefit from, a single source of as-built where you don't have the 50 different CAD files with 50 different names trying to figure out where to pull this CAD data from to get your information on your indoor facility. It can all be stored in one centralized location. Huge advantage, huge time savings there. As well as being able to share that with your engineers and architects and your developers. The platform we show will really provide a good way to engage and share with those other parties. And then you can integrate it across multiple facilities. I know some of the folks that you've signed up, and this might be a good question. I think what I'm gonna do, Bill, is test out our chat capabilities here. If you would just say in the chat box whether you maintain multiple facilities or one main facility. I guess you could just say in the chat box, if you could just say, yes, we have a campus that we maintain, or just one facility. I'm just kind of curious what we can see for that. So if you would just put in the chat box there, if you can just say maintain a campus or single facility. I'm just kind of curious if we get anybody to chime in there for that. And we'll come back and look at it later, but that's kind of an interesting thing to know, is how many of you are looking at a campus or just a single facility. So how is GIS used for indoor mapping? Basically, for those who are not familiar with GIS, Geographic Information Systems, in the past has traditionally been used, looking down from the 10,000 foot level for mapping like citywide, countywide projects. Now we're taking it down to the floor level. So what does this look like? We have a system of record, which is your floor plans, your interior space data, and then maybe your work orders, things like that. System of record, those things are stored in a database or in your CAD files, whatnot. But now we've had, we want a system of engagement. How are we going to engage with that data? Is it going to be a web app? In this case, we'll show a kiosk example. An operations dashboard is another way to engage with it. So you have system of record and system of engagement, and GIS brings those two together. Lastly, the indoor positioning, we'll touch on that a little bit more specifically here, but that's another way, as you see on the slide, the blue dot, so to speak, that shows up on the phone for indoor positioning is something we want to touch on. So what is ArcGIS Indoors specifically? We, as an Esri business partner, we build all of our GIS on the Esri platform. Esri has ArcGIS Indoors. Now what it is, it's a collection of tools that basically streamline the process of getting CAD and BIM data, building information modeling data, a process that streamlines getting that information into an interactive GIS. Why would we want to do that? Well, with the GIS, it's much more robust in being able to interact with that data, and you can analyze data, report on data. It's a much more of a way of engagement, as well as a sharing platform. GIS is a much better sharing platform than the CAD or BIM systems when it comes to sharing with local agencies, or however you want to interact, like emergency personnel and whatnot. The process that you go through, we're going to talk about ArcGIS Pro. That's the desktop software GIS that we're going to use to publish these maps. It also then, in order to view the maps and engage with them across your organization, you need ArcGIS Enterprise, which is managed through another, it's called Portal. So think of Portal as a window to look into your enterprise data with. But what must happen is very important is clean CAD or BIM data. If you have clean CAD or BIM data for your facility, you're at a great starting point. If it's dirty, if it's outdated, you say, hey, a lot of this just needs updated. What you're going to need to do then is implement some type of 3D scanning or 3D data collection in order to come into your facility, and that's something we also offer as part of our services. Lastly, as the end goal, we're trying to publish web apps and mobile maps to be able to use in your web browsers or your mobile devices for your facility or campus. The process we go through, number one, getting the data, so that's your CAD files, your BIM files, or capturing it with a 3D scan. In this case, you see an example of a backpack unit walking through with a 3D scanner through the building. Importing that data either from the scan or from the BIM or CAD files, then creating those floor plans, and we'll look at some of those examples, how do we create them interactive floor plans, and then extracting features. So for example, what do I want to store in my Indoors GIS? If it's a fire protection layer, I'm looking at fire extinguishers, alarms, sprinklers, security items like cameras, or MEP, mechanical units, HVAC systems. You can also, if you have the details on your plumbing or electrical, we can put those into the system and you can interact with those internal systems in your buildings. Setting up the indoor positioning system then would come later after we extract and populate these databases. And then lastly, creating that interactive experience from the mobile apps and being able to engage with users. So here we got an example with building locations. So building locations is like the highest level of facility management. Where do I, what building am I talking about across this campus? What facility am I interested in? And here we just have a, little sample of, a building locator to be able to find the building that I'm interested in engaging with. So, you can use the map. It'll interact with a GPS receiver in the mobile device. It can automatically quickly identify which building you're in, or in this case, in this example on the right, we see it's selecting from a drop-down menu. So let's talk about mobile editing. So as you can see from a smartphone, you can engage with this data. ArcGIS Indoors mobile app, and that's part of the full Indoors solution. With the mobile app, you can engage and add new points to the map. Say you're walking around a facility and you're doing an audit on, say maybe it's, different kind of safety features. In this example, I think we're looking at an AED here. So you're going to go and inventory those throughout the facility. And you would walk around with a smartphone. It would show your position within the building, and you can easily add points. You can take photos, things like that. A great way to engage with those layers. These can also work for those GIS users. It can work with Esri's native mobile apps. So Collector, Survey 123, Quick Capture, and Workforce. Those are all native Esri apps that consume these maps that we're going to show you and interact with them in different ways. Routing and navigation. This is a really important part of indoor spaces, being able to route and navigate to people, places, things throughout your facilities. If you want to have a user-friendly work order system, the work order comes up, the user's on his mobile device, and he or she clicks on that, give me directions, takes them right to that particular asset or unit that they're interested in doing repairs on. Can save time. You can engage with the public if it's in a public-facing kiosk mode, like the example we're going to show you, one of them is. You can also minimize the risk of exposure. So especially with COVID, obviously people moving back into buildings and offices, they may say, hey, we want to route people on our campus to minimize their exposure of other people when it comes to keeping people safe and healthy. And then indoor positioning systems is a key part of that as well that we can touch on. Reporting and analytics. So this is exciting that we get into. You can have dashboards, we call it, for managers to make really quick, easy decisions across their campus or facility. We call them data-driven decisions. I want to make a decision and I need the data to base that decision on. So in these two examples on the right, we have one that's a indoors, it's an office space dashboard that shows how many vacant offices there are across the facility. And of course, as you know right now, many large campuses have a lot of empty offices right now with the current pandemic situation. But this is a good way to monitor and engage with which offices are empty or which ones are occupied. And this could be conference rooms, you name it. If you wanted to take it to the next level, you can monitor how many people are in this room. And that could be using mobile devices when people are logged into your system. Another thing here, then example on the bottom here is a dashboard that shows work orders. I have, 2 cleaning, 1 electrical. These are the outstanding work orders. It also has a list of those that have been completed. So again, great way to engage with the data. And then here, lastly, before we jump into the demo slides, we have just wanted to touch on this real-time locating system, RTLS. This is essentially putting the blue dot on the map. How do you locate users throughout the building? And not only users, but you can also monitor devices and assets. So like in a hospital facility, they may want to track their expensive, assets as they move around from room to room. We know it's common in healthcare systems. So how do they track those? You can use an RTLS, which is the same way for navigating people or items throughout your facility. The different methods of accomplishing this, there's Wi-Fi systems, Bluetooth, beacons, and then UWB, ultra wideband. They all have their differences in benefits for each different system. We like the lighting systems. You can actually put these systems in your lighting systems. You can put the beacons, and the nice thing is they already have power. You don't have to worry about batteries. Some of these other systems, if you're going and putting beacons around your building, you have to worry about replacing those batteries every 5 years. With the lighting, they have continuous power, so much lower maintenance on those, and they provide a lot more accuracy. In some cases, you're getting down to within just a few inches of the location of that asset. So really powerful tools here. All right, I want to jump into the demonstrations here. So first, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the web app. So what I'm showing you here is an example of a web mapping application with interior spaces. And this is in this case, it's a cemetery and mausoleum. So we're looking at the mausoleum here. In this case, our client they wanted us to map out the entire cemetery of burial locations, but also you got to have a way to engage with the interior spaces of the mausoleum, because obviously they have, burials and interments in there as well. So how do we do this? Well, behind the scenes, so think of this as a shell, the brown area you're seeing here, this is a shell, we call it a web app, and behind the scenes is a web map. This is a web map that we're looking at that we put together and published to our server. And this web map, it looks a little messy now because it's showing all the different levels on here. And it's not filtered in any way, but it's got everything put together here. And then it's being pulled into this web app that is more user-friendly and easy to engage with. So let's look at how do we engage with this. So in this case, let's say I'm a facility manager and, I want to look at, let's say I want to look at safety and security issues. So in this case, I want to see my cameras, and I would maybe have these cameras numbered. And I want to engage with these cameras so I can easily select them. If there's an incident going on, I want to be able to see the exterior of my building. I can easily pull up that live feed and see what's going on with my camera there. What's easy way to interact with that data. Another thing I can do is, let's say I want to engage with the fire department on safety items. In this case, hazardous materials. I can click on there. I can see there are some hazardous materials located in the basement. And you know what? I really need to know where those are at. I want to engage, and I have to access this in a quick way. Maybe it's an emergency situation. I have details on my hazmat materials over here on the right, and I can click directions, and it's actually going to route me, in this case, my home point, I'll say. And the nice thing is it's telling me exactly, how to get to that location. Another way to engage with that is if let's say I'm a visitor and I want to do, I'm going to type in the word, name Levinson. So Jason, and let's see, I want to see and navigate to that particular location. Okay, and his location is in the mausoleum here, and he's on the second floor. I can see that here, and I look over in the details, and let's say I need directions to his location, and I can get those same directions, and I can navigate from any location that I'm at. In this case, we'll say it's from the lobby, and then you can see what's nice is now I have turn-by-turn location navigation from the lobby location. So this is actually going to take me around to the elevator, take the elevator up, and then when I actually move to the second floor, you can see the floor plan also updates. So now I'm looking at the second floor. This can all be done with a mobile device as well. Same type of interaction there. So as we can see here, I've got the different building levels as well to easily be able to navigate there. So if we go be able to easily jump back and forth between the different levels. Here's level 1. In this case, this facility has 3 different levels. And then level 2 is upstairs, is a little smaller. What we can do then is, what I'm showing you here is more of an example of what a facility manager might use, and they can see events and be able to access that. But what if we want a kiosk to be in the front lobby? This is a really popular way to interact with visitors that are coming in. In this case, use case example, the cemetery had folks coming in to look for loved ones that were buried. They had to staff the office every day, including Saturdays. They said, hey, we need a way to engage visitors so we don't have to be here on Saturdays. They were actually able to save some man hours with staffing by implementing a kiosk that was able to easily engage with the public. So let's say, again, if I'm part of the public looking to engage and through memorials, let's say I'm just looking and I want to start just by looking for a name, look for Levinson, and let's say, I'm going to look for, let's look for Dorothy. Dorothy's in the, it's not going to find Dorothy. So we'll do Arthur, see where Arthur's at. Okay. So Arthur gives me a location here. And again, I see that, but this is a huge cemetery. They got about 70,000 burials in this cemetery. So what I can do is if I want directions here, it's going to easily route me to that location from the kiosk. In this case, it looks like it's got a little bug here going down to the end for Arthur. But say I want to add a stop and I want to do another, let's say I want to find his relative. Now there's Dorothy. But let's say I want to find, now I want to find Dorothy, and I can add her into there, and I can say directions. It's going to take me to her location as well, so I can add multiple stops in there if I need to. So very handy way to engage, again, if this was the public, being able to explore those different features as well. You can drill down, see places and things. Okay, show me where the elevators are at in the facility. It's going to be able to quickly identify those. And again, all this can be done from a mobile device as well. Let's say I want to find events. So I'm going to go over here to the events tab. And obviously with a funeral, I'm looking for, it's a cemetery and mausoleum. So I'm looking for a funeral service. Let's say I want to find anything going on this month. I can see we have one for Harley Freiberg. It was on the 12th. So I'm going to look at where that location is, and again, get directions to that location to easily navigate me. If I'm a contractor or vendor looking to provide services for that, it's going to give me an easy way to interact with where that particular funeral is taking place at. So that's kind of touching on that specific application. Again, that's for cemetery and mausoleum, but the key is it can do indoor and outdoor. You have a complete routable network of indoor and outdoor spaces, which you can do for any campus or facility. So now we're going to shift gears here, and I want to look at another project here. This one is actually a campus for a nursing home facility. Obviously, right now, we know those are important to be able to protect our nursing home residents. Obviously, they're a little isolated right now. Most of them are shut down for visitors, but we know as the importance of having a facility management system, especially in this type of interactive method. Envision this being approached from an emergency responder situation. So I have a citywide map, but then let's say I want to be able to come down and basically lift the roof off by zooming in here. I can see, or if I know what building I'm looking for, I can easily select that from my drop down. So I'm going to say country view, okay? And I want to be able to access information on this facility. I can see it's an assisted living facility. I can see square footage, who it belongs to. I can even see a contact name. And in this case, I've got it set up. If I want to email the contact here, I can easily just click on that link and it'll send an email to whoever's in charge of that facility. Or if I got my mobile device, click on the phone number, easily access my mobile device phone and be able to call, or again, link to their website as well. In this case, let's say I want to edit attributes on that. Something in here needs to be updated. I can just simply click on the edit attributes, and that's going to take me to another basically window to be able to make edits there. If I select that facility, you can see on the right-hand side here, I can update any of that, and that will be reflected in real time in my application here. But let's say I want to drill down now. I've selected that building. Let's look at Main, the main building, okay? What level do I want? I can select my level here. In this case, they have a basement, which it's not a full basement. I can see that when I select that level. In this case, we're going to go to level 2, the main level, that I can access any unit there. So let's go to unit 12E. So it takes me there. And now at this point, I want to see the bathroom or the living room in unit 12E. So I can see the details of that. It says, hey, it's a bedroom, tells me where it's at. The main, again, I have the contact information there. And in this case, say there's an issue with this room. It needs to be cleaned, or maybe there's a lighting problem. Maybe I have an IT issue in this room. I can say report a problem. And what this is doing, just open a very simple survey form for me to fill out and report my problem. So date reported automatically chooses today, as well as I can automatically log my username so it knows who reported it, because I would have to be logged into this system. And then I can select, say I got a furniture issue, so that allows me to pick the category, put in chair needs repaired, and easily have this be sent in and submitted. And now I can do an attachment, so I can add that as well. And again, you can do this from a mobile device. It will also assign it to different people based on the category I choose. So that can actually be really handy. I obviously probably don't have the same person taking care of furniture as I might doing lighting or IT work. So it's really handy. We can automatically designate who that report goes to. And then those reports, of course, can be consumed in any type of a dashboard or a way to, as we showed earlier, a glimpse of those dashboards, being able to manage which ones are complete, which ones are not complete. So a good way to user-friendly way to interact with that. So again, if I want to edit information on that room, so this is my unit, and then I look at the bedroom specifically, I can edit those attributes. And again, that takes me to my editor window. And if I just select that room over here, I see all of my data that I can interact with. So this is I wanted to show you the end user experience first, so you can see how we can use this data, how we can engage with it. Now, as our title is in the webinar, creating these indoor maps. How do we do this? What's kind of the workflow we walk through? So that's where I want to take you to our desktop software. I want to take you to what's called ArcGIS Pro. So ArcGIS Pro is similar to, say, a CAD system like AutoCAD, only here it's a GIS software which is going to allow us to do a lot more with the data, from creating layers to manipulating that. So simply starting off here, what we're starting off is with a floor plan. This floor plan was, this one in fact was generated from a 3D scan with the lines being drawn in and drawn. Those are, you know, keeping the 90-degree angles and everything was fairly easy. It created these floor plans for all 3 levels. I can toggle these different levels. These were created in about, I'd say, less than a day is what it took us to generate all these floor plans in this case. But if you had clean CAD data, again, that could be imported here. And then what we do is a process called georeferencing. This is important because we have to put this floor plan in the right space in the world. So we need to know, where does this exist? Where does this live? We go through a process called georeferencing. We overlay that on the imagery so we can get that building and that floor plan exactly where it belongs in the real world. And that's an important part of the process. So over here, I'm gonna turn off my imagery again. We have our different levels and units. So just to explain the Indoors, ArcGIS Indoors system, it's got a template to put your data in. So it's got what's called an information model or a data schema. And here we have the layer called facilities. Turn off my details. Facilities is like the high level, you know, view of, you know, zooming out, let's say. Actually, my first one would be called a site. In this case, I don't have that layer added to my map, but the site would be like your whole campus boundary of the entire space. Then the next level is facilities. I can break those down. And then levels. So we'll see in this case, I've got the 3 different levels, and you can see those as I toggle my levels over here to the side. Then there's also units, which is actually the room level detail. As I showed you with the nursing home example, we were able to add in one more detail in there called sections, which was able to provide like a certain apartment complex, would show you, you know, just that area of the building. In this case, we break it down to the actual space, which is the units. So it gives me, in this case, there's an internment space there. It gives me the name and information with that. So this data, building these maps, is probably the biggest part of the project that takes the longest time, is being able to curate your data and be able to put it in this type of format. So, okay, so next we want to look at our metric map here. And the reason we had this in metric is some of the default Esri Indoors models. Sometimes we can start in metric as kind of the default, but we can also work back and forth between metric and English. But what we're looking at here is a 3D view of that same building, and you can see the 3 levels are here. And if I turn off some of my layers, we'll see in the simplest form. Let's turn off our polygons as well. What you start out with to get your 3D and your navigation, your routes, is you've got these, you can see the floor is covered, the 3 different levels of floors are covered with like a mesh. And that's what we do. It's called generating pathways. And so that's the first step in creating these route networks. Then these routes are then thinned down to be more specific for what we need. And those you see here, once I thin it down, this is the actual network that those routing and directions is using. And what's nice is it's actually in 3D. So I've got that thin network that I go to. And then what you see here is the stairways and elevators. So this is my elevator shaft straight up and down. Then I have these stairways built in, again, because that's what gives us that floor by floor navigation. But this process is called creating transitions. So if we select one of these, we can see that I've got a transition there, and it'll give you details on that. I give it different heights and what level it's going to and from. And that's a key part of building the interactive maps for the routing. Okay. So then you can see the completed, again, as we look at the different polygon layers, we can pull up there. This is what we kind of see. It's going to use our thinned network. And these are part of, again, the process of the ArcGIS Indoors solution. Is the process you would go through would be generating those pathways or the mesh, then you thin it down, and then you create these transitions. So in this case, let's look at what do we get as a way to test our routing. Okay, so in this case, if I turn on the route layer here, I have 2 points to test my routing network. 1 in the kiosk in the lobby, and 3 is in the upstairs. You can see it's going up the stairs in this case. Let's say I want to add 1 more in the basement just to test that out. What I'm going to do is go and create a point, another stop in the basement here. Okay. And let's say I want to make that stop number 3 under sequence, so I can let it know which order I want to do those in. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then what I would do, and if I'm building this network in ArcGIS Pro here, I'm going to actually select my route layer, and then under Network Analyst, I'm going to click Run, and it's going to reroute based on my stops I gave it. It's going to go from 1 to 2 to 3, and you can just see now the orange route that's highlighted actually populated and went all the way down the stairs to get to my 3rd point. So that's a way I can actually test my routing system to make sure that's working. Okay. So the next step after we've got our layers created, or all our different levels, we've got our data populated, we've got our route network created and tested. Now we're ready to publish these maps. So far I've been working on my local computer with my ArcGIS Pro software here. Now I'm ready to publish those to my server. So again, I have to take those maps I created in ArcGIS Pro desktop software, publish those to my server, which could be either in-house or it could be in the cloud as well. It could be either one, and I publish it to those locations, so now I can interact with it. So as I zoom in here, I can see I've got all my layers configured, and over here on the side, I've got my points of interest. And you remember when we looked at our web application, just to jump back there, I can see in my web application, if I go back to Explore, I've got these different categories. That's where these are coming from in ArcGIS Pro. It's coming from these different layers, and I created what's called points of interest for those. So that's how I'm creating that web map. I publish it from here by going to, what we do is we publish our web map, and then I can interact with that once I publish it to my portal. Okay, so the other thing we can do then is, as I mentioned, the mobile apps, being able to connect to it there. We basically take this same map, and here I have it saved, it's called MMPK, that stands for Mobile Map Package, and I publish this mobile map package to my server. That is what is then accessed by the mobile devices. So it comes in really handy there to be able to publish one for the web that we looked at, the interactive one, and then also publish one for the mobile devices that looks just the same and very similar to that. Now I want to jump over to the other example with the nursing home project, and we'll just touch on some of these. So we can see I have my preliminary pathways. If I look at those, this was the mesh I started out with. Then I thinned it to get down to my network so I can optimize it, because if we tried to use this full mesh as our routing network, it would slow it down a little bit because I have so many different options and different directions I can go there. So that's why we thin that pathway, and it looks kind of like a circuit board is what we call it there once we thin that down. So now just to kind of show that different levels and whatnot, be able to show how we've got also here, we've got our levels. If we toggle those, and I can see that, it shows just my, if I turn off those pathways, just my basement again. And this is a nice feature in ArcGIS Pro. If I turn that off, you can see it shows all of them, but I turn it back on to show the level, we call that ranges. You can build ranges into your data to easily navigate that way. So how do I know my route is good? The route network that I created, another way I can test that out is using some tools in ArcGIS Pro. It's called Data Reviewer. And I can see all these points here that show me, hey, something's going on at these points. Oh, they're not connected to the network. Either they had some attributes that weren't configured right, or something was missing there. But I can get as specific and detailed as I want by adding toilets and sinks and all kinds of fixtures there into my interactive web map and include those in my routing network as well. In this case, it's showing me, hey, you don't have any route network out here in the courtyard, which I realize, that's no, I don't have those in the courtyard because it's not somewhere I'm really looking to navigate through. And you can see, if I turn off those units there, you can see my courtyard, not somewhere I'm necessarily going to route people through in this case. It's more just for residents to be able to go out there and enjoy the outdoors. So next, I want to publish those layers. So I can come in here, and again, I have my different levels I can look at. There's the basement level. I can look at the main level. And now this is, again, the map that I would publish my data from the desktop software to my web portal again with. So let's say in this case, I'm going to zoom into a bathroom here, select that bathroom. If I look at those attributes on that particular bathroom, you can see in this case all of these attributes down here. These attributes that you see here that are associated with that bathroom are actually being inherited from the underlying level, from the underlying facility, and from the underlying unit. So the nice thing is the way we have this structured when we create our data, when I draw in this bathroom, I don't need to populate all of these by hand. It's automatically grabbing all of this information from the underlying layers. The way we're doing that, we're using a functionality called attribute rules. I'm not going to get into that in this particular webinar, but just kind of explaining the time-saving capability that you can have with the ArcGIS Pro configuration. And then we'll look at, lastly, we want to look at our network in 3D. You can, again, as we toggle this, we can see we have the different levels. This is my thin network that I'm going to publish for routing, as well as the points of interest. And that's what we can do. You can use this for testing as well. And then also, just to show a bit of 3D, what this looks like, all we're doing here is taking our 2D data that we've seen so far, and we're giving it a height value, and we're telling it extrude that in this 3D map to take a look at it. So that's nice to be able to, you can also publish these 3D scenes and engage with those as well through those web applications. So if you wanted more of a virtual, tour or walk through kind of thing, or be able to route your visitors in 3D, you can certainly do that as well. And we've got one client who actually uses the 3D web scene, not for navigation, but they use it more for finding locations and visualizing that within their building. The one thing I wanted to mention here was on this one here, just to explain, and let me go back here to the routing one. Another way I wanted to touch on the service area is just a way we can kind of make sure all of our routes are covered, make sure they get that full connectivity in our route network as well. So that's it for ArcGIS Pro and kind of talking about the back end on how we do that. And just to finish it up here, I did want to just go back to our slides and just touch on just some concluding comments here about the services that we offer as far as the indoor mapping. We can come on site. We would come on site at your facility, your location, your campus, be able to provide an evaluation to give you a high-level overview on, yes, this is a good candidate on how to create interactive mapping for your facility and your campus. We can also do implementation, where we would come in, we would set up your server software, your enterprise system, as well as training. We offer the training side. We have these programs that we called Kickstarts, where we come on site for 3 or 4 days, or we can certainly do that remotely as well, to train end users on either creating and publishing the data, or maybe they just want to train end users on actually using the applications. So using them on a mobile device or using them in a web browser. And then these, as well as just depending on how much detail you want to get into, if you have a GIS user or manager, we can train them on curating the data. And those are more, full day workshops that we can offer. Our cloud hosting is something we can do for you. If you come and you say, hey, I would love to have a campus-wide map, a campus-wide facility map that I can interact with for visitors and engage with, but maybe you just don't have the IT or technical capabilities readily, and you come to us and you say, hey, I would love for you to just build this and manage it for me, we can certainly offer that as a solution as well. We could host your data, maintain those servers and the software required that are involved with that, as well as managed services. And the managed services is a turnkey solution where we would come on site periodically and update your data and your maps based on what the real world conditions are out there. So just kind of covering the services that we can offer you to be able to provide a flexible framework for all of your indoor mapping needs. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Bill now to wrap things up.
Sure. Yep. Great. Thank you, John. That was great. A lot of good information in there. We're going to jump in. We do have a couple questions submitted. So guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box there. But let's see. First one here. What licensing software would I need from Esri to implement Indoors?
That's a great question. So ArcGIS Indoors is licensed through Esri as a complete package. With the ArcGIS Indoors solution, you would get ArcGIS Enterprise and Portal. You would also get licensing for ArcGIS Pro, and then you get some extensions with ArcGIS Server where you get, one example is GeoEvent extension. So you've got a lot of tools at your fingertips from Esri with this licensing package. Very powerful software package to be able to take advantage of.
Perfect. And let's see, another one here. What level of expertise is needed to curate and publish indoor mapping applications?
Sure. So for curating these, and what we mean by curating is just putting the data together and building those maps, you're going to want somebody with some basic GIS experience, somebody who's familiar with using the GIS software and layers. Probably to do more of the publishing, you want a little bit more advanced skills with GIS, know some things about server and enterprise. So I would say from everything I showed you in the desktop software, you're definitely going to want someone, if you're looking to do this in-house, you're going to want someone who's technically experienced with GIS. If you're just looking for end user solutions, of course, that can be anyone in your organization.
Perfect. That is all I have right now. Guys, if you have any more questions, you go ahead and submit those, and we can answer them outside of the webinar and get in touch with you directly. I'm going to go ahead and share just a last slide here with some contact information. So again, thank you all so much for attending today. We really hope this answers some of your questions, got you some information, and obviously we're here to do more. I'm going to send a couple more links in the chat room. So visit cloudpointgeo.com/indoor mapping. If you're more on the operations side, facility managers, VPs, operations, physical plants like at schools or hospitals especially, have some more information there. You can contact us through that page. And then if you're more on the technical side, like John said, looking to set this up for your organization or facility, go to cloudpointgeo.com/just indoors. That's more on the technical side. And when you go there, we also have a new tutorial sign up list that we're going to have. John, I think that's live, isn't it? They can sign up for that already.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. That's up and ready to go.
Yep. Sign up there, and it'll be kind of like our tech blog and newsletter where we'll have periodic updates. And
you can pull that page up too if you want to, Bill.
I probably could. Actually, let me share that here on my screen. Pull that over. There we go. Yep. Sign up down here. We've got a nice little new video for becoming an indoors expert. You can sign up here for our tutorials. And again, you can always get a hold of us, contact us for anything you guys might need on either end of the spectrum for indoors. Email me directly, bsteele@cloudpointgeo.com. Our phone here at the office, 877-377-8124. And as always, once we're done with this, I'll get the video trimmed up and get that on our YouTube playlist, and anybody that attended, you'll get the link to that. But again, thank you all for attending so much, and we look forward to seeing and talking to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.